What you don't hear him talking about are, in fact, the most important issues facing this country. That's what the establishment does. Lindsey is a very good and effective representative of the establishment. Does Lindsey have a concern that we are the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all people? That some 60,000 people a year die because they don't get to a doctor on time? I didn't hear much about that in that opening statement. Lindsey care that we have the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs, and that the pharmaceutical industry right now has 1,500 paid lobbyists in Washington, D.C. to make sure that in some cases we pay 10 times more for the medicine that we need? Did Lindsey talk about the fact that we have in South Carolina and all over this country tens of millions of workers working for starvation wages? Did he talk about a corrupt political system in which billionaires today can start a super PAC? And I guess you have some familiarity with super PACs. They help fund your campaign.
Boom, roasted from Bernie Sanders there. You know that Lindsey Graham knows that he's losing a debate when they keep cutting him and he's just got that like little smile on his face. Like he doesn't have a response because he knows the position of his party. It's that they don't care about those things. If you're a conservative, I need to get through to you that they don't care about your economic lot in life and they have no intention of ever improving it. They don't even pretend to have an intention to do that. When was the last time you heard a Republican politician talk about your wages and how stagnant they are? You know that you're not paid enough. Why is it that it doesn't bother them the way that it bothers you? And why doesn't it bother you that it doesn't bother them? Why do you keep supporting politicians that don't care about you? But this isn't just about conservatives. America, you could have had that guy as your president. Did anyone else get debate vibes 2020 or 2016? That was just what Bernie Sanders says. That's what his values are. That's the focus that he's always had, is on dealing with those issues. And America chose to go in another direction. And thus we end up with the situation we're in, Yasmin.
Yeah, it's almost a little insulting to Bernie that they paired him up with Lindsey Graham, because Lindsey represents a party that doesn't have a platform, right? And it is very reminiscent of a lot of those debates that we saw, especially leading up to the 2020 election. Remember when there was like a million different Democrats running for the presidency? And I mean, Elizabeth Warren had plans on plans on plans of how she was going to get things done, and she had research and all that. It didn't matter, because all that matters, all that you're fighting against on the other side is just people saying things and people believing them, right? And that's it. They don't need evidence, they don't need proof, they don't need to back up any of their claims, they don't need research, they don't need surveys, nothing. So the Democrats are doing all this work trying to make an impression on people and trying to educate people on things that they need to be educated on, things that people in positions of power should have some insight to. But on the other side, you just have Lindsey Graham sipping his water and nodding and smirking and not really having a rebuttal, because there is no rebuttal. They do not have a platform. They don't. Officially, they don't have a platform.
Yeah, behind the scenes, they do. They have economic goals. They've largely already accomplished them decades ago. They just iterate a little bit each time they get a Republican president. They just give a couple trillion more dollars in tax cuts to the wealthy. That's what they're actually doing. Now, if you're a conservative and you're watching this, you might think, well, wait, they don't say that. No, I get it. They don't say that. And you don't focus on it because your head is spinning from how enraged you are by the trans community constantly. That is the con they're playing on you. They keep you enraged so you don't see what they're doing, okay? And Lindsey Graham is a part of that just as much as Ben Shapiro is a part of that. They all share the same goal. They're a part of it. You're not. You're on the outside. You're a tool to keep them in power so they can maintain their position of political and economic dominance. That's all it is. Bernie Sanders is a threat to that, and that is why the establishment on both sides, including Democrats, were so terrified of him. I want to give you a little bit more Bernie Sanders. He makes a final point that I think is worth focusing on, so let's jump to that.
Bottom line is we are moving toward oligarchy. And if we don't stand up and say that we need a government that represents working people and the middle class, I worry very much about the future of this country, and I hope you'll speak to some of those issues.
Okay, that is the populism that is the only populism that is worth anything. You hear about other populisms that in practice are just more anti-immigrant talk and more hatred of the LGBTQ. It doesn't actually mean anything. If populism is not a threat to those who rule, it's worthless, okay? And it's worthless by design. If you think Tucker Carlson is a different type of populist, but he also hates the elites. He's one of the elites. He goes to all the parties. He's at the dinner table with them. You're not, as people are saying, as George Carlin said, it's a big club and you're not in it. You better believe Tucker Carlson is in it, okay? Lindsey Graham is in it. Trump is in it. Bill Clinton is in it. The elites on both sides are in it. Bernie Sanders clearly is not. That is why we need someone like him. And just watching this reminds me of how close we came. And I really hope that, within a year or so, we're in the thick of a vigorous primary campaign where we can have another chance to convince people that there is an escape button on the horrible situation we've been found in. But you're not gonna get it from Pete Buttigieg. You're not gonna get it from Kamala Harris. You're not gonna get it from any of those. You need a strong progressive who understands the march, not just towards fascism, which we're on, and authoritarianism, and Christian nationalism, but also oligarchy. Those are attached phenomenon, and we have to fight against them. We need someone like a Bernie Sanders. Any final thoughts about the debate, Yas?
Yeah, I like how you said that we need someone like a Bernie Sanders, because it did come up that somebody asked Bernie if Joe Biden runs again in 2024, would Bernie Sanders support him or run against him? And he said that he would support him. It's an insane, in 2024, both of these men will be in their 80s, right? They're too old to be running the country, right? As much as we love Bernie here, as much as I love Bernie, as much as you do, he's too old. He's 80 years old, And the thing is, if we want progressive policies to be enacted, if we want progression in the country, we need younger people to take up the mantle, even if that is just in Congress. Even if, we have an 80-year-old president, if we have younger people in Congress, I think it will make a big deal, a big difference.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.